All right, everybody. So we finished Aristotle's graphic biography, and near the end there, um, it just sort of kind of wound down, but it was still pretty fairly easy to read, and honestly, just sort of let it happen, kind of like watching a top sort of spin, and then watching it kind of bounce around there at the very end before it finally just kind of gives out. And I feel like this is kind of actually a good representation for this book. It's something that I think you can continually sort of wind up and then perhaps spin again. But I mean, all we really covered there in the end was a lot of conspiracy spoken by Alexander, a lot of people going into exile, his wife dying, his remarrying, more of his friends dying, and him getting into some sticky situations with the state and with Alexander, with how he was treating traitors and such things. And there was a lot of political corruption that seemed to be going on as well. And the like, and we don't really go over Alexander's death that much. It's kind of just actually almost basically literally mentioned, and that's it. He just mentions in passing like all the people that have died. We get a better realization of that at the beginning of the book, but sort of in the timeline of the book, not just in the introduction. It's basically just sort of like skipped over or skated over kind of thing. It's just like, and Alexander, and then they just go on. Maybe because it's almost like at that point in time, it seemed like something that shouldn't be admonished. You know what I mean? Like, he was being painted in a pretty harsh light by this book at that time. But there were almost like some references that just made it seem like his whole life was a wonder, kind of thing. Like, and he far succeeded, anybody's best guesses as to what he would achieve ever. He went above and beyond what anybody even thought was possible. But yeah, his death's kind of skated over. And then we get kind of some imagery of him going back to his first wife and first love, like in a temple kind of thing. And it says that he died of just some stomach illness or whatever. And then it's basically kind of subtly zooms out a little bit, and gives us some finishing words. And then we're looking at the world and basically just, there's some quotes that say like the world has changed, and maybe change is enough kind of thing, basically. And so, yeah, that's the book. I would definitely think that it's something that if you're into philosophy is a good read. I think it goes along well with my previous books that I had just read. It's like we can look at the death of Alexander and almost talk about my character death that I did in my Italo Calvino series kind of thing. And, as we understand maybe what life is and, what ultimate truth is of something, and does that actually give us direction or tell us that we can go nowhere? Then what is the truth actually? And then I feel like I could almost say like the truth is that there are two, and where there are two, there are always more. But is that the truth? Kind of pit it up against itself there, just, that maybe there's an expression of truth that's almost like our idea of the worst. We just say the worst, but the worst is something we can never know. And it's like nothing. We have a word for it, but the word doesn't even do it justice. Maybe that's how the truth is. We have the word, the truth, and it's sort of in opposition of that idea of nothingness or worst. And, even though actually the truth might be something that's almost more like gay, to be honest with you. It's just, if I was to propose some reflection of it. You know, there's good and there's worst, or best and worst, I should say, you know. But at that point in time, we catch a glimpse when I say, like, the truth is that there are two things, because I think the truth is that something else always exists, basically. But then you can say, is that the actual truth? Being that maybe there really is only one thing that exists and there's nothing else. That's what I'm saying. And so when I'm saying, like, we have the word the truth, is it just basically like trying to say nothing? But there's ultimately no way we can do that. So we say the word truth to try to recognize that there is something else. But maybe there really is no real way of knowing what something else is without ourselves, basically, you know. And I compare it to the word gay because I feel like the truth goes on a range of good and bad. And I think the word gay kind of goes on a range of good and bad too. Kind of like that. So if I was to posit that with, at this point in time, some other word to give us the other side of the circle, or perhaps the line from which the angle points to, then that's kind of what I would point it to. But yeah, interesting read. I thought it was a lot better than just reading their basic works. I feel like these two authors did a really good job. And yeah, the artwork was really good and really cool. I mean, you could basically, if you were a kid or something like that, you could just, you know, or even at any age, really, enjoy just the art and the pictures as much as the story that's kind of being told, and a lot of the prepositions that are made. So yeah, I'm gonna have to find another book now, I guess, but yeah, that's kind of my final thoughts. Aristotle, a graphic biography.